Welcome. Thanks for joining me. My name is Sue Gaskell Barlow. I'm a self-awareness coach, and if you've never been on my YouTube live before, I invite you to subscribe and ding the bell. What do? I am told I motivate people, help people with life skills. I have my own slimming business, Sureway, Sue Gaskell Sureway, which has helped thousands of people to lose weight. I am a mediator, an intuitive self-awareness life coach, and many, many more. Those are just bits of paper. What I do is hopefully get people to think for themselves. You see, for most of my adult life, in my programming, everybody was more important than me. Everything was my fault, and I felt inferior and inadequate to everybody. And the fear I lived my life in was astronomical. And because of all that programming in my psyche, in my subconscious, I had to then learn how to cope with life. And I coped as a victim, as a survivor. I coped by being brave, being a martyr when need be, a people pleaser, just a few of the roles that I decided, without even knowing, to pursue. The hats that we wear in order to cope with situations. And our ego, our real vulnerable self within, we have to protect and not let everyone know just how vulnerable we are, often. And so that's what we do. We create a role play, we create a concept of who we are and give messages out to people. Sometimes we can have an exterior that's very abrupt and sometimes very, very loving. And we give out messages from the way we behave as to how people are going to treat us. And so if somebody comes along and you are just doing the best you can, feeling reasonably confident, life's good, life's okay, and somebody comes along and it triggers something off in you. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk a little bit about triggers. Now, a lot of people don't even know what that means. And so a lot of people who do know what it means think they know that just means, oh, well, that's who I am. And they think that's all there is to know. A trigger can come at any time in any given situation. And I truly believe we're here to learn life's lessons. And the lessons in life are to evolve, to become mature in mindful awareness. We're also spirit in a physical body, so our spirit needs to evolve and grow, and spirit has to be in a physical body. So when we come onto earth, we are completely and absolutely vulnerable as a tiny baby, human baby, and yet the spiritual energy within is pure love. It's pure, pure love. Very soon, man-made concept, human concept, is we start teaching the child good, bad, right, wrong, in, out, up, down, love, hate, beauty, ugly. And so by the time we're 7, then we've got this idea of certain aspects of life. We never stop growing and learning. Our biggest growth spurt, if we are allowed to be ourselves in spirit and to be guided, not controlled by loving parents and teachers, meaningful people, however, very, very misguided in so many ways. Because then by the time we're about 7, we actually think that it's wrong to do certain things, wrong to have certain emotions. And an example is, I use this as an analogy, a metaphor. Imagine there's a boy and a girl, they're both 4 or 5 years of age. Imagine it's you. And you're playing happily and you fall, both of you, running along and you fall together. And unknowingly, you fall into a bed of nettles and you are stung all over what is exposed, that's legs and arms. And the adults around you see your distress and say to you, oh my goodness, come here. Oh, pull yourself together, don't be a wuss. Oh, sweetheart, is that hurting? Let me give you a sweet to make it better. Let's find a dock leaf. We can rub that because nature has a way of supplying all that we need. Oh, get over it. These are just a few of the comments that might be said at that time. Now let's take the comment of, for a boy whose pain is just as strong as a girl's, he's absolutely hurting all over, itching all over, and it really is painful for a short time. And he's told to pull himself together. Boys don't cry. And he's allowed to be angry. So he's angry at the fact that he's hurting. Now, a little girl, she's playing happily, falls in the same bed of nettles, and she's allowed to cry. She's not allowed to be angry. So where do these emotions go that we're not allowed to feel? And is it okay to be told, if you're a boy or girl, a different experience that then is going to change who you are? As far as I'm concerned, we need some new language, and that's what I'm going to be teaching in 2018. I'll be writing a book and putting it down in print. I've written 3 books, so I do enjoy doing the written word. And that same boy becomes a man, and then he hurts himself with a hammer, gets a right big screaming, throbbing thumb, and it cuts his finger. What does he do? He curses, he gets angry, and he mustn't be seen to cry. If a girl did the same thing, she would cry and wouldn't think that it would be okay to be angry at the fact that she's hurt herself. Not angry at herself, just a feeling of anger, a feeling of hurt. They're just feelings, and we don't have to put them into boxes, good, bad, right and wrong. And so that's how one of the tiny things we grow up with. And we've got this huge range of emotions that we don't even tap into because we're either black or white, good, bad, right, wrong. And then we're told we shouldn't, and all of those words that are parental, not helpful. And again, that's the new language I want to teach. And we flip in and out of these languages. We flip in and out of love. We flip in and out of fear. We flip in and out of blame, shame, guilt, control, punishment. And even in the most together family, you constantly can see how what people are saying to each other is triggering off an emotion that that person doesn't remember, and it's a deeply buried emotion, and the response to that emotion is deeply buried. And I tell you something I've noticed for sure, and that is how people who are quite badly damaged psychologically and emotionally, and of course that means mentally, then I see them when they have children, I see they respond to the child, and I see men resenting their own sons, and daughters, and vice versa, women resenting their child. Not everyone's maternal. Not everyone's born thinking this child who I've been presented with and took so much effort to get into the world. Nobody told me that 24/7 this child who I'm supposed to love on sight, that there wouldn't be a minute to call my own. It's a huge ask of any of us. And so when we look at what we have achieved, we need to give ourselves a huge pat on the back. And it doesn't stop there, this triggering. It doesn't stop there at all, because all depending on your experiences as your children then grow up, and all depending what your teenage years were like, you can have a huge effect on your relationship with your child. And again, most people don't understand this. They don't know, even recognise that's what's happening, because they're in denial. It's called being in denial. And most people who are in that place, they project onto other people and say of other people what they don't own in themselves. Now, I hope you listen to this again and again, because it's a very important part of the journey. And that's the journey we're all on. And at different times in your life, as a mum, you have to understand that a child is loaned to you. And that child, we have a responsibility to teach them manners and respect and to guide them, not to try and control them. Controlling them is changing the page on which their story is written. Because you see, when you think that you know what's right for them, you've gone into your programming. Whereas if you just were in the moment and used your intuition more, you would soon realise, and realisations are aha moments, that in actual fact that you are doing something that's not helpful and creating, it's called a rod for your own back. I see that on a regular basis. And if a child starts screaming and crying because basically they can't have their own way. Can't is not a word I use lightly. They want their own way and they're controlled by the adults and their teachings. So a child doesn't understand that the world doesn't revolve around them because the child hasn't learned. We learn that as we grow into teenage years, hopefully. Excuse me. Although I see very little evidence now of that happening, because the adults that are out there going to be future leaders of the world seem to think the world revolves around them. Seems to, most of them, not all, before anybody says no they don't, and that's okay. So many of the next generation, we are teaching them that instant gratification is all that matters, that anything that they buy that then breaks is disposable. And unfortunately, I see evidence that people are disposable, and that's really not okay. And so the older generation are struggling in a way they never struggled before. They're lonely, their needs aren't being met because nobody's listening, because their adult children actually believe they know what's best for their parent, who is beginning to lose some control of their choices as their health breaks down. And the elderly are living so much longer now, which is the way of the world. And you know, I'm one of the elderly now, which I find absolutely hysterical. Apart from when my body starts aching, you know, arthritis, Arthur's always wanting attention, tinnitus is another one, ME, fibromyalgia, rheumatism, rheumatoid arthritis, all the isms. And And these conditions, along with so many more, become part of the journey. A lot of that is because we're not being kind to ourselves. We are not in the moment. We're not owning how we feel, because these feelings are deeply buried from childhood. Buried because we're told it wasn't okay to feel them. And I'm suggesting that now is a great time to address any of these emotions that you personally didn't even realise were happening. And what does this mean? What does it mean? To conclude this conversation, what it means is you either get better or you get bitter. When you get better, it's accepting everything that's happened as part of your journey, your learning, your life lessons. It's not giving yourself a hard time when you realise now that had you known more, you could have made a better job of things. Because we do what we can with what we've got. And so did our parents and their parents. And so carrying a grudge throughout life for something that happened to you and you feel it wasn't fair is like carrying a mountain on your shoulders. And life has a strange way, karma it's called, of showing you in a different way as your children grow older, the life lessons that you haven't learned yet. And so we all do the lessons learning in our own way. And I definitely was a late developer. Mine was caring so much for other people. And the reason I cared for other people was because my existence depended on what they thought of me. I needed their approval. My self-esteem was on the ground because everyone was better than me. And so that was a real handicap that I self-sabotaged most of my adult life. And it's only in the last few years that I can truly say, 20 years that I've been on the journey, in the last few years, and certainly it seems the last 6 months, I have learned so much. And you realise that each person's on their own journey, that yes, they could learn enormously from the elderly, wisdom it's called, wisdom from experience. And they could have shortcuts, they could learn so much quicker than we did and have, because their programming is so less developed than somebody of my age. So where does this lead to? And how can we put this into practice? It's like driving a car. So many people who are older don't want to step out of their comfort zone. And yet when we wanted to learn to drive, we didn't know how to drive. We had to go to somebody who knew how to drive a car. So we listened, we learned, and then we learned to drive the car, passed the test to the law requirements, and then, and only then, were we able to start putting into practice our learning and our expertise and learn to drive the car the way it felt right for us. By that time, hopefully you've got good morals, you've got good standards, you understand and take responsibility, not just for your own safety on the road, for other people's. And there's very little evidence that once somebody gets behind a car that's never realised how angry they were because they weren't allowed to own anger, they get behind the seat of the car, on the seat, behind the wheel, in a car, and it's called road rage. They're just people that have never, ever unpicked their emotions and learned to use them in a healthy way. And that's just one of many, many examples. And so moving forward, accept the unacceptable. Accept, accept, accept. Accept and remember what you think, so it will be. So if you think, okay, so it was pouring down with rain, and I'm going to say, okay, oh, what a dreadful day this is going to be. That's awful after yesterday. Yesterday was wonderful. That's one way. Or I could say, wow, we're getting some rain now because the gardens and the ground needs it. And all depending on what I think will connect to how I feel about the day, especially in my programming. It'll trigger off when I was little. What did the adults around do when it was raining? Did they say, oh no, not another miserable day? Well, we mimic that, we pick it up. Or did they say, never mind, well is on, bright raincoat, and let's go and splash in some puddles. Now, there's nothing you can do about what happened then, and there's everything you can do about changing it now. Because what you think, so it will be, working within the internal dialogue chatterbox within the self. The brain is like a transmitter. It's waiting to accommodate everything you desire and want. So if you say, today I would like a lovely, lovely experience with an attitude of growth and learning, that's exactly what will happen. Today I choose to be peaceful, and whatever happens, nobody's going to touch the peace. So it will be. And so you are more prepared if things happen that aren't in your control, however your emotions and your thoughts are. And so it's up to you to learn your lessons, to put the work in. And I invite you, if you are ready, to join me on Sue's University of Life. And I am Sue Gaskell. I am happy to make a difference where I can, to change a world just by my behaviour, the little drop in the ocean, and hopefully changing people's perceptions if those perceptions are not for the good of the whole, because we're all in this together. And I'd like to leave this planet, Earth, a better place, and by better I mean in terms of healthy awareness within the individual, in terms of love being the ruler of that person's life and not fear, in terms of making a difference so that people truly take self-responsibility, they can self-nurture, they can self-guide, and they can then be selfless because they will know exactly in mindful awareness what to do and how to respond to any given situation. And when people say they're calm, and I watch their behaviour, and then I see they might appear calm, however, they're giving off energy vibes, and what they say is more the truth. And the truth is, be careful, watch what you're doing. Mind, don't let him go near that, don't let her do that. And so that's not calm. On this level, underneath though, the sludge and the muddy waters are there in the subconscious, and it's obvious by the way you project yourself onto situations. And so try and understand that, try and accept that, and try and understand that when you have a trigger, it's a realization moment for you to find something out about yourself. Peel back the layers, grieve, understand, move on. And the more you know, the less you know. In the world's trivia and within the self, the more you of what you thought you knew and what you need to know. So in our I think I know, our subconscious, we're so scared of the unknown. It's one of the biggest fears in the human condition. I'd be more welcoming of being scared of what you think you know within, and I'd be hugely excited of what's going to happen today. So changing that around is in your hands, my hands, and it's truly a choice. Some people don't know the choice is there. So I look forward to sharing time on the rocking chair, sometimes the chat show, sharing Shoreway slimming clubs and helping people to lose weight, And there's just so many things that 2018 I am so excited about, including my new website, which will be launched late January. And there'll be videos, there's books to buy, there's coaching, there's all manner of programs and products that I know you will benefit from if you're ready to move forward and understand why you eat when you're not hungry. Why do you say yes when you want to say no? Find some answers and some new life skills to these questions and more with me on Sue's University of Life. And I say bye for now.